Well, here is something I want to tackle head on. I'm going to quote James White in his book, The Potter's Freedom, on the topic of Calvinism, and show how off he is. Quote, "It has always been recognized that God either bases his election and decrees on what he foresees in the free actions of creatures, or his decree and election determines what takes place in time. In the first scenario, the creatures are by default the sovereigns of the universe. Since their wills and actions are ultimate, God becomes a mere servant of the creature, reacting rather than rating." End quote. So, what is wrong with this logic? Well, it's quite a bit, actually. First of all, God is not only sovereign, but has been from eternity. Since God is all-knowing, then there is nothing that he is caught off guard by. The concept of many sovereigns just simply can't work. God knows all, so any plan of so-called sovereigns would not work. The devil tried, and he didn't do too well. He failed. Most of us have a hard enough time keeping things together on our own, and have yet to meet a man that can control any part of the universe. Second, the only reason why we exist is by the sovereign act of God. How would mere men that are but dust become sovereigns of the universe because they chose to serve God? Really? Third, God has the ability to take our breath away at any time of his choosing. Job chapter 34, verses 14 and 15 from the Amplified Version states, "If God should set his heart upon him, man, and withdraw his life-giving spirit and his breath from man to himself, all flesh would perish and man would turn again to dust." Next, God requires the soul of man at his command. There's a story in Luke chapter 12, verses 16 through 21, starting in verse 16. "And he spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentiful. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall those things be which thou hast provided? So he that layeth up treasure for himself is not rich toward God." You know, we will all face judgment. No one in the sound of my voice can escape standing before God, so how does free will prevent the freedom of God? Hebrews 9:27 says, "And as it is appointed unto man once to die, but after this the judgment." Tell me, who does God answer to, JW? Yet the most important thing to consider is that when one is sovereign, that means that they are Lord. And this concept we really find in the New Testament, because at that time, people can have as many gods as they want, but Caesar was to be called Lord. That is why the Christians were singled out for persecution, because they were not calling Caesar Lord. Keep that in mind, because it is impossible for a believer to be a sovereign of the universe in the degree that God has and always will be, because what the Apostle Paul stated. In order to be a Christian, to be saved, Romans 10:9, that thou shalt confess with thy mouth what? The Lord Jesus. In order to be a Christian, one has to acknowledge that Jesus is the sovereign Lord. Thus, how can many sovereigns have their will be ultimate if in order to be a Christian, one has to acknowledge the very lordship of Christ?